Hello and welcome. You're watching India Sense. I'm Gauri Dwivedi. Let's get you the big stories that we are tracking this week on the show for you. First up, the United States and India have signed a new 10-year defense framework agreement. And in their first meeting ever, both sides hailed the relationship with US Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, calling the ties has never been stronger than now. US President Donald Trump's surprise directive to begin nuclear weapons testing has raised the specter of renewed superpower tensions, even as the world awaits details about Trump's intent on how the testing of America's nuclear pile will take place. Bangladesh's slide continues as Dhaka hosts Zakir Naik, a rabid Islamist preacher and terror sympathizer, even as Bangladesh and Pakistan evaluate ways to elevate their existing military partnership. And viewers, India is all set to launch its most powerful rocket, the LV-M3M5. And as it will thunder into history, the nation's heaviest communications satellite, the CMS-03, will be launched this weekend. All right, viewers, the big story that we're tracking on the show this week. Major step as far as the bilateral defense agreement and cooperation between India and US has been taken. The two sides have signed a new 10-year defense framework agreement. They announced this deal in Kuala Lumpur. And as it did, US Secretary of War Pete Hegseth said the partnership between the two nations has never been stronger. Now, viewers, this is the first time that the two leaders actually met face-to-face, Rajnath Singh and Pete Hegseth. And when they did, they announced a framework that will reshape the security architecture of the region, send a strong message to China, and also further give a fillip to India's defense ecosystem, the indigenous defense ecosystem. The announcement came on the sidelines of the ASEAN Defense Ministers meeting, plus in Kuala Lumpur. And now this is extremely significant because there are a host of areas where this announcement, this partnership will actually be game-changing. And let's get you some of those aspects. First and foremost, long-term access to advanced defense technologies for India. Now, this will be crucial for our indigenous defense production and our modernization aspirations. It is also likely to potentially deepen the military interoperability that exists between India and US. It could enable seamless use of each other's facilities. It will also elevate India's role within the ASEAN security framework. And this is extremely important, viewers, because New Delhi will be and is a regional stabilizer. It will be the go-to partner for maritime cooperation for America, for South China Sea, for the larger Indo-Pacific. And here's the thing. The announcement came a day after Donald Trump and Xi Jinping met for trade talks, where China got a 10% tariff cut. But a day later, the Trump administration upped the security architecture in the region, where China is the single biggest threat, and India now its most pivotal piece. And as far as New Delhi is concerned, this comes a day after it got exemptions for the Chabahar port, extremely strategic for India because it connects New Delhi to Central Asia and further ahead. Now, Donald Trump is unpredictable, viewers. He's mercurial, but connect the dots here. And it seems that Washington is willing to meet New Delhi halfway, not at its terms anymore. And that is the single biggest change that has taken place in the last week. All right, to talk more on this, let's get in Peera Shankar, former ambassador to the US, to talk more about what all has changed and how one should really be reading these latest developments. Ambassador Shankar, thanks so much for speaking to me on India Sense. Let me start by asking you about the defense framework that has been signed between India and the US. The first time the two leaders met, they've called the relationship better than ever, and a defense framework that many feel could actually be probably a big game changer for the two.
Well, the defense framework is like an agreement which doesn't look at specific details, but sets out the broad framework within which interaction will take place between the two countries. So, the military to military interaction, the interaction between defense officials, the interaction at the ministerial level, and 2+2, and then the the kind of interaction between US agencies and Indian agencies, which would look at technology or development of technologies. So this framework has been in place for the last, I think, almost 30 years, for 15 years at a time. So it's a renewal in a sense. I have not had the time to really go through and see if there are any new elements in it.
Yes.
But it's good that the framework has been finalized because there's been a turbulence in the relationship
I was coming to just
between
that.
India and the US on account of trade tensions.
I was coming to just that, Ambassador, which is that this commentary, this talk and this framework coming at a time when there's been a lot of tensions, a lot of back and forth, and to many not a lot of meeting of minds, so to say. So in the context of the present tensions, this is extremely significant.
Yes, it is, because it means that despite the trade tensions, both countries are prepared to pursue other aspects of their relationship while making efforts to resolve the trade tensions. From India's point of view, it would mean that some kind of via media is reached with regard to Russian oil purchases, with regard to tariffs, and other elements which are under discussion with the US. I think we would like some accommodation of Indian concerns, and that it should not be a one-way agreement, but should bring benefit to both sides. So those discussions are going on, and hopefully there have been some, slightly more optimistic statements on this from both sides. So perhaps some progress has been made, and I think we have to wait and watch. But the signals we've been getting from institutional Washington right from the beginning is that they would like the partnership to continue, and there's continuity in approach. So you had the 2+2 meeting,
Yes.
Of the defense secretaries and the foreign secretary.
Yes.
You've had other military exercises in which both countries have participated. The US has participated in Indian exercises. Indian military has participated in US exercises off Alaska. So the signals that we were getting were that there is a desire to have continuity in the relationship, in other aspects of the relationship.
All right.
Now, the point is that for India, as I said, the kind of statements which were originating from Washington, they were pretty aggressive and not very accommodating. So despite these signals, there was concern here whether the relationship could go off the rails or there would be some, pullback.
And I think that's the single biggest takeaway. Yeah.
And that's the signal we get from this, renewal of the defense framework agreement.
All right, Ambassador Shankar, thanks so much for speaking to us and really highlighting that the Trump administration is now ensuring that trade is not likely to dominate the entire relationship, which has so many aspects and so many strategic layers to it. Thanks much, Ambassador Shankar, for speaking to me on India Sense. All right, turning attention now to the other story that we are tracking on the show this week. US President Donald Trump is vying for a Nobel Peace Prize, viewers. He wants to be remembered as the peace president, one who ended so many wars. But his announcement of possible testing of nuclear weapons has stunned the world, because Donald Trump has said that America will start testing its nuclear weapons. Now, how will that happen? Nobody knows. America hasn't conducted nuclear test explosions since 1992. There isn't any clarity whether Donald Trump is going to do that or not. But the fact that a peace president is trying to probably stir up the nuclear arms race is the biggest story that the world is waiting for. And this report tells you all you need to know about it.
these defining images of nuclear testing are of Operation Julian. On September 23, 1992, the United States conducted its last nuclear test, codenamed Divider, at an underground facility in Nevada. The world will soon see a repeat of nuclear tests by the United States. US President Donald Trump made his intentions more than clear.
But we have more than anybody. When I see them testing, I say, well, if they're going to test, I guess we have to test. I'd like to see a denuclearization because we have so many, and Russia has so. Russia's second and China's third.
Defense analysts say a move like this would mark a dramatic policy shift.
Experts warn that if America restarts its test, it could see China and Russia follow suit. Now, that's not to say that there hasn't been some push by Moscow over nuclear weapons. They have been threatening nuclear weapons use as their war in Ukraine has dragged on. And Moscow also has tested a nuclear-powered cruise missile in recent days as well.
Within hours, Russia issued a stark warning. Moscow would respond in kind if the US crosses this red line.
Президента Путина, который неоднократно повторялось, что, конечно же, если кто-то отойдет от моратория, то Россия будет действовать соответственно.
The renewed talk of nuclear testing harks back to the anxieties of the Cold War, when superpowers conducted hundreds of tests and the world anxiously watched every move. As world powers ramp up rhetoric and ready responses, the chilling memories of the nuclear standoff seem closer than ever. Bureau Report, NDTV.
Now, viewers, India has one of the most volatile neighborhoods in the world. We have two nuclear-armed countries, Pakistan and China, and these directives will impact India. On one end, this kind of strong deterrence against China's expanding nuclear and missile program will help India. But at the same time, it will probably be a green signal for Pakistan, which is a long-time security ally of America. It will perceive this as validation for upgrading its own nuclear arsenal. It will heighten regional instability. And let's not forget, Asim Munir is a failed field marshal. And Donald Trump's nuclear call may push him even more. After all, he's had two back-to-back failures. Operation Sindoor, followed by Afghanistan, where it's been failed talks. Will this be a call for Asim Munir to push up as far as the nuclear button is concerned? It remains to be seen. On that note, a quick break. We return with more on the other side. Stay with us. Welcome back. You're watching India Ascends. We now take a look at what's happening in our neighborhood. 54 years after a very bloody, messy separation, Pakistan and Bangladesh are suddenly calling each other partners. Islamabad's generals are back in Dhaka. And it's the first time in 2 decades that they are now pledging defense drills, training, and even intelligence sharing. The second highest ranking Pakistani general was on Bangladeshi soil. There are murmurs that there could possibly be even an ISI cell inside its Dhaka mission, part of a deal that gives Pakistan eyes on India's eastern flank. But as Dhaka and Islamabad cozy up, New Delhi is not just taking notice, but it is also taking steps where it hurts the most, and that is trade. Bangladesh's economy is teetering on the edge. And now trade is becoming the key battlefront in this South Asian power play. This report tells you.
Bangladesh's economic, social and democratic slide has been swift and rapid, and the descent has come with sharp warning signals. A possible military collaboration between Bangladesh and Pakistan. And now, greater economic cooperation after a gap of 2 decades. India's response to these developments has been calculated, measured and effective. To hit where it hurts the most, India cancelled key Dhaka trade transits and blocked all land routes for jute shipments, requiring imports to pass via the sea route, increasing its costs and making them unviable. Decision to restrict land ports has hit $770 million worth of Bangladeshi goods. Sensing an economic opportunity, Pakistan has offered its Karachi port to Bangladesh. Except that the offer doesn't solve Bangladesh's trade woes. With 2,600 nautical miles journey requiring 2 weeks to complete, the Pakistani proposal is nothing but optics, and explains why limited maritime activity has taken place between Bangladesh and Pakistan despite a Pakistani cargo ship docking at Chittagong port months ago. The meeting of the Joint Economic Commission between Bangladesh and Pakistan in Dhaka signals a clear shift, that trade is another frontier where battle lines are now being drawn.
Viewers, as Bangladesh cozies up to Pakistan, it's also opening its arms to Zakir Naik, a rabid Islamist banned in many countries. He's a terror sympathizer. But this is yet another red flag that makes one ask the question that should the interim advisor of Bangladesh be making such permanent changes to the country's social, economic and legal framework? Or instead, he should be focusing on elections, with many asking that has he already not overstayed his stay in office? Well, viewers, let's now get you the other story we are tracking, which is what's happening in China. While the world's cameras flashed and the headlines gushed over that picture-perfect handshake between Xi Jinping and Donald Trump, a very different drama was unfolding, not in Seoul or Washington, but deep inside the guarded powers and power chambers of Beijing. And what really happened? Well, there was history being rewritten, as many in China feel. Because Beijing is trying to alter the global power under the banner of the Fourth Plenum, one of the most consequential meetings that have taken place in China, and we reveal to you just how it unfolded. Now let's get you those details. First and foremost, the Fourth Plenum took place just days before Xi Jinping smiled for the cameras with Trump in Busan. His party brass in Beijing hardened their doctrine. It was a call for arms. It was a call to arms for technological dominance. Now, what really happened as far as technology is concerned? Xi Jinping didn't come to talk just tariffs with Donald Trump. He actually came, when he failed, to buy time, to out-invent, outproduce the West in the very technologies that define tomorrow. And to get that time period going is what Xi Jinping tried to do at the meeting. Made in China 2025 is a doctrine that really defines Xi Jinping and how he views China. And in his grand plan, every chip, circuit and satellite must be made in China. You can't get there overnight. What do? You try and negotiate with Donald Trump on several other aspects of discussions and find the enough window of time to be able to do that. Next, what followed, many feel, is that Chinese industries, funds and even research labs are now being rewired for that one goal, which is that there should be complete independence from the American system. Which is why, viewers, the October 20 to 23rd plenum had a warning as far as China's elite is concerned. And that was very clear, which was age of cooperation has now made for an era of confrontation and no compromise. As far as Donald Trump is concerned, it looked perfect as far as those photos are concerned. But many feel American negotiators were talking truce at a time when Beijing is actually talking about techno-military supremacy, something that few in Washington are disagreeing that China is working towards. Now, where does this put India in the middle of all of this? India is a democracy, markets are thriving, moral compass dictates and could actually dictate the Indo-Pacific. Also, India now is having its own technological push, whether it is semiconductors, whether it is the supply chains of technology, where India feels it not only needs to make an important dent, it needs to China-proof them. And I think that is something that is likely to make a major role as far as what happens going forward in terms of the China-US tech race. Well, viewers, shifting focus, the next time you see that handshake, do remember, in the corridors of global power, diplomacy is often a mask and silence roars louder than even the most thunderous applause. At APEC 2025, the world blinked, but China didn't, and that needs to be kept in mind. And finally, let's go to Sriharikota, where the sky awaits, viewers, silent but alive with promise. In a few heartbeats, India's most powerful rocket, the LV-M3M5, will thunder into history, and with it, the nation's heaviest communication satellite, the CMS-03. It's a story of how far we've come and how high we're meant to rise. This report tells you why.
At the Satish Dhawan Space Center, the LVM-3M5 stands poised. 43.5 meters of precision and power. A towering marvel forged from Indian ingenuity. The twin solid boosters roar first. The thunder splits the silence of the eastern coast. The liquid core takes the baton, pushing through clouds and gravity alike. And then the cryogenic stage carries a billion dreams, a billion aspirations into the stars. In those moments, a billion hopes rise from this soil and leave the earth behind. On board CMS-03, there's a 4.4-ton powerhouse of connectivity. It is ready to link oceans, islands, and every Indian heartbeat that beats beneath the sky. Be it Chandrayaan-3's footprints on the moon, and now LVM-3M5's flight to the stars. This is ISRO's story and India's spirit. Unshaken, unyielding, unstoppable. Each countdown is a prayer. Each ignition a promise that India will never stop ascending.
Dear viewers, as the flames of LVM-3M5 cut across the night, they light up the story of a billion dreams. Because when India reaches for the stars, the world looks up in wonder. It's a moment in our journey to eternity, and we are proud to share it with you. Viewers, you're watching India Sense. Until next time, keep looking up.